Hi YouTube, I saw this painting on eBay a while back and when I first saw it I thought that looks like a Bob Ross, and when I looked more closely at it um, I saw it was signed B. Ross, so I got a bit excited and I bought it. I only paid like about 20 or 30 quid for it, and it probably isn't a Bob Ross, but I like to think that it might be. There's so many of the brush strokes and things look really similar to how he paints. But anyway, I decided to do a watercolour of it, and I'm going to go through it with you step by step. Okay, so I know the painting that we're working from is an oil, and we're doing this in watercolour. But it's quite nice just to get the same sort of effect of a landscape using a completely different medium. I like doing that. So all I did to start with was just these few silhouettes of trees. I didn't do any pencil work at all, just going straight in with the paint. Next I did a wet in wet sky. This is just literally adding water and wetting the whole kind of area and then just dropping blues and purples into it. I think I used cobalt blue and violet. A few more defined tree shapes. These were done with cobalt mixed with Paynes Grey. And you can see like the one that's closest to us is stronger, and as they go back in the image they go paler, and this gives an immediate sense of distance. Next, a few blue sweeps to suggest some dents in the snow, some snowy hills and banks and that sort of thing, and maybe some shadows from the trees. Then I got some of the main tree shapes in. This was just a mix of English red with a bit of violet. And you can see here that I haven't gone too strong with this at this point. Okay, then I added some cobalt blue and some brown here. I think this was just burnt umber, maybe mixed with a tiny bit of violet to neutralise it a bit. This gives just a suggestion of the sort of icy path or stream. Okay, more burnt umber here and there just to break up the landscape a little bit and give some effect of like banks here and there, and again just break up the sort of mud and things in the foreground. This was just a mix of yellow ochre and English red to create this nice bright effect coming through the trees. A few more watered down cobalt blue mixed with Paynes Grey bits here and there just to kind of break up the snow, both in the foreground and in the background. Okay, this was watered down raw sienna, just to build up some foliage on the trees and again to add further texture into the ground in the foreground. I then used a sponge to apply some of this dark green. I use St. Petersburg White Nights watercolours, and in their particular set this dark green is just called green. But if you haven't got it, you can always mix like a sort of a typical grass green with some black or some other very dark colour and you'll get something similar enough. Okay, some green washes added. I think I used oxide of chromium, and then I went back to the very dark green with a brush and just built up the contrast in between the trees at the base. I then used sepia to build up the texture on the trunk of the main trees in the foreground. This was done both with watered down sepia and then using slightly stronger sepia. Then some large washes of Paynes Grey over quite a lot of areas actually to build up all of the big shadows and things in the foreground. I then repeated this process with more Paynes Grey, even more watered down, and also really pale violet washes. This starts to fill up the sort of in between all the trees and things. It makes it a lot more solid looking, and it also neutralises anything that is too bright. Okay, and then right at the end I took some lemon yellow and I mixed it with some white watercolour to make an opaque kind of pale yellow colour, and I've just used this to add extra branches and texture to the trees. I'm just copying from the kind of brush strokes and things from the original painting, and I think this really is kind of given it what it needed at the end. It's a really good kind of finishing touches. So yeah, I think I'm really pleased with it. I know it's like a watercolor interpretation of an oil painting, but I think it works really well and it's made for a really nice landscape. Okay, here's my watercolor painting above the original oil painting. Obviously I'd love to think this is an original Bob Ross, it would be amazing. If not, it was certainly painted by a very competent artist, put it that way. It's really good, and the more I worked with it and tried to analyse it as I painted my watercolour, the more I could tell it was done by somebody with a lot of skill and talent. If you know anything about early Bob Ross paintings, I know like his later paintings he signed in red, and this one is just signed B. Ross in black. It was bought in an art gallery in England in the 70s originally. I can tell because it's got the date and stuff on the back of the painting. But yes, it's probably just a sort of pipe dream that it's a real one. Anyway, thanks for watching. Check out my other painting videos to see more kind of step-by-step tutorials and that kind of thing. Hit subscribe to see anything else that I do in the future.